In a busy university cafeteria in Nigeria, there's a woman everyone ignores. She wipes tables, pours coffee, and cleans up after students and professors. Nobody knows her name. Nobody sees her. She's just part of the furniture. But when the physics department gets stuck on an equation that has stumped top universities across Africa for years, she listens carefully. She thinks about it. And when she dares to speak up, they laugh at her. You work in the kitchen, stay there. What they don't know is that this woman used to be one of the brightest physics students at Covenant University, Lagos. And she's about to prove them all wrong. It's 7:14 a.m. Grace Okafor adjusts her white hairnet and gets ready for another shift. She's worked here for almost 10 years, washing dishes, refilling the coffee machine, smiling at students who don't smile back. The professors walk past her like she's invisible, like she's just another appliance in the cafeteria. Always working, always there, but never actually seen. But Grace watches everything. She listens to every conversation that passes by her station. This university in Osun State is one of Nigeria's best. Modern buildings everywhere, awards covering the walls, students and professors talking about complex theories all day long. But this morning, Grace hears something that makes her heart beat faster. It doesn't make sense at all, a frustrated voice says from the corner where the physics department always sits. The quantum field equation fails at the third iteration, even with the particle compensation factors we calculated. They always sit there, discussing theoretical physics like other people talk about football. Their voices get louder when the problems get harder. Did you factor in the space-time entropy shift for the multidimensional calculations? Another voice asks. It's a woman who waves her hands around when she talks. I double-checked the data last night until 3 a.m. The problem's not technical, it's structural. Something basic is wrong with our approach. Grace moves closer, pretending to clean some cups that are already clean. She's good at being invisible after all these years. Her eyes land on the papers spread across their table. Equations that would look like nonsense to most people, but not to her. Those words, those terms, that language of theoretical physics, she knows it well. It used to be her whole world before life took everything away. She pauses for just a second and whispers to herself, barely loud enough to hear above the cafeteria noise, if the quantum matrix is degenerate in the fourth dimension, why not just invert the field vector in multidimensional space? She doesn't realize one of the professors heard her. He raises an eyebrow and turns his head sharply toward her. Excuse me, did you say something? Grace freezes. Her heart races. I was just thinking out loud. Sorry, sir. The professor looks at her with amusement on his face. Interesting. We've got ourselves a quantum physics expert in the kitchen now. The others laugh. Not mean exactly, but like people laugh at something completely ridiculous. Grace gives a brief smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She lowers her head and walks away quietly. But deep inside, something wakes up. Something that's been sleeping for years. The sun makes everything look peaceful. The cafeteria has cleared out, but the physics professors are still at their usual table. Laptops open, research papers stacked high, voices getting sharper with frustration. Grace is wiping down a tray someone left behind, but her ears are tuned to every word they say. 3 days of work and we're nowhere, says the grey-bearded professor, running his hands through his hair. This equation has gone through University of Cape Town, Makerere University in Uganda, and the American University in Cairo, and still no consistent solution anywhere. Another professor takes off his glasses and rubs his tired eyes. Don't forget, University of the Witwatersrand tried last month Stellenbosch. University had their quantum team on it for weeks. University of Ghana couldn't crack it. And even Cairo University with their new supercomputer came up empty. It's just another theoretical framework destined for the trash heap of failed physics theories. Grace freezes mid-wipe. Her hands stop in the air. She catches a glimpse of the notebook one of them is writing in frantically. She knows that structure, that logic, that mathematical rhythm. Without thinking about the consequences, she speaks up. Excuse me for interrupting, but have you tried adjusting the particle interaction coefficients in the second-order calculations? You might be assuming a dimensional field error that doesn't actually exist in the quantum framework. Dead silence. 4 pairs of eyes turned to her at the same time, staring in complete disbelief. Professor David Akinola, arrogant with his university ID clipped to his blazer pocket, stares at her like she just said she could fly to the moon. "I'm sorry, what did you just say?" His tone is dripping with condescension. "The parameters," she repeats, more timid now, feeling the weight of their stares. "The mistake might be in the dimensional field assumptions you're making. If you reframe the particle limit cycle in multidimensional space..." A beat of silence, then a scoff that cuts through the air. "Well," Akinola says, crossing his arms, "looks like we've got a new hire in the physics department. Do you solve quantum equations between mopping shifts? Maybe you discovered the theory of relativity while washing dishes." A few polite laughs follow, not loud, but sharp enough to cut. Grace's smile barely holds together. Heat rises to her cheeks. "Sorry, sir." She turns and walks back to the counter. Her steps are measured and controlled. But this time, she doesn't just walk away defeated. She clenches the dish towel in her hand so tightly, her knuckles turn white. That's not just embarrassment burning through her. That's wounded pride finally waking up after years of forced sleep. The old shower in her small room makes more noise than water pipes groaning like they might burst. Grace sits in her tiny kitchen in the village in Osun State, far from the university, far from everything she once knew. Her apron is still folded on her lap. The overhead light flickers once, twice, then steadies. She sits at a wooden table that's seen better days, with one thing in front of her that matters more than anything: a weathered spiral-bound notebook on the cover. A peeling sticker still reads, "Covenant University Lagos, Advanced Theoretical Physics Program." Slowly, carefully, like handling something sacred, she opens it. Memories flood back instantly. The pages are full of handwritten formulas, clean and precise quantum diagrams, mathematical proofs that would make most physicists pause in admiration. The kind of theoretical physics you don't just learn from textbooks, the kind that lives in your bones. Back then, before everything collapsed, this was her language, her world, her future. She closes her eyes and lets herself remember, though the memories bring pain. The last time she'd touched this notebook with hope instead of regret, she'd been 23, a rising star at Covenant University, Lagos. Professors calling her the most promising physics student they'd seen in a decade. Then came that phone call that changed everything. Her father, Samuel, a successful businessman and pillar of the Lagos business community, had just lost everything. The shipping containers at Lagos Port Complex. His entire investment for the New Year inventory at Apapa Port. All of it gone, fallen into the ocean during loading, uninsured, irreplaceable. The shock was too much for him. While driving home in Lagos after receiving the devastating news, his hands shaking, his mind reeling from the loss of everything he'd built over decades, he crashed the car. The accident left both her parents with disabilities that would never heal. Her mother, Elizabeth, became wheelchair-bound, unable to walk, unable to care for herself. Her father developed rapid-onset Alzheimer's from the trauma. His brilliant business mind crumbling day by day until he couldn't remember his own daughter's name. Grace never finished her degree at Covenant University, never went back to the physics labs where she'd spent countless hours. The family lost everything: their Lagos mansion, their cars, their savings, their social standing, their entire life. They moved from the city to their ancestral village in Osun State, where at least they had a small house that couldn't be taken away. Grace got a job, any job that would pay. First at a local shop, then a primary school, eventually the university kitchen, anything to put food on the table, to buy her mother's medications, to pay for her father's care. That line from earlier keeps echoing in her mind. You work in the kitchen, stay there. But this time, Grace doesn't cry like she has so many nights before. She turns to the last page of the notebook, picks up her pen, and starts to write. Not with anger that would cloud her thinking, not with desperation that would make her rush, but with clarity, with love for the science she never truly abandoned, with the same brilliance that once earned her standing ovations in packed lecture halls at Covenant University. She remembers this quantum equation, not exactly, but close enough to recognize its structure. She'd seen it before in the advanced coursework, hidden in the shadows of another problem her professor had posed as impossible. One line appears on the page, then another. Each formula flows naturally from the last, her hands steady as muscle memory returns. And in that forgotten room in a village most people couldn't find on a map, Grace smiles softly to herself. There it is, she whispers to the empty room. It was always there, waiting for someone who understood both the physics and the sacrifice behind it. The campus is still asleep when Grace steps outside into the pre-dawn darkness. The sky is navy blue, turning purple at the edges, the first light just beginning to brush the treetops with gold. She walks slowly across the empty campus square. No one to see her. No security guards questioning why the cafeteria woman is there so early. She's not carrying cleaning supplies this time, just her notebook clutched against her chest like armor. She enters the physics department building through the side door she discovered years ago during her cleaning rounds. The hallway stretches before her, silent with that special kind of quiet that feels almost sacred. Lecture Hall 2C will be empty at this hour. She knows from years of observation. There it is, a clean whiteboard at the front, coloured markers waiting on the ledge, everything she needs. She opens the notebook to the page she filled the night before, takes out the blue marker, and stares at the vast whiteboard for a moment, gathering her courage. Then she raises her hand. No hesitation, no doubt, only purpose. Line 1, the quantum field framework, establishing the theoretical foundation. Line 2, particle interaction variable shift correcting the fundamental error. Line 3, multidimensional vector inversion methodology solving the spatial problem. Line 4, space-time entropy correction factor accounting for dimensional drift. Line 5, the complete elegant solution that universities across Africa had failed to find. 5 lines of pure theoretical physics. No extra words to explain, no ego demanding recognition. Just mathematical elegance, speaking for itself. When she finishes, Grace steps back and looks at the board. Not with pride exactly, but with peace. The kind that comes from finally expressing a truth that demanded to be told. She puts the marker back carefully, tucks the notebook under her arm like she did so many years ago at Covenant University, and quietly leaves the room as if she'd never been there. Outside, the sun is just beginning to rise over the campus clock tower, painting the world in shades of hope. And no one knows that a woman they never truly saw had just solved what the best minds across 7 countries couldn't crack. Professor John Adeyemi's footsteps echo down the hallway as he pushes open the door to Lecture Hall 2C, coffee in hand, fully expecting another dead-end morning of staring at unsolvable equations. But what he sees makes him freeze completely, coffee cup tilting dangerously in his suddenly slack hand. There on the board are 5 lines of theoretical physics, so elegant, so precise, so impossible that his mind can't process it immediately. He blinks hard, steps closer. His coffee now forgotten as he whispers in disbelief, "No way! This can't be real!" Within minutes, he's on the phone calling everyone. Dr. Ngozi arrives running. Then Dr. Chidi, then 2 teaching assistants who'd been working on this problem for months. Soon, 6 people stand shoulder to shoulder in front of the board, whispering excitedly, arguing about implications, checking and rechecking the mathematics. This isn't a guess or lucky accident, Ngozi says, her voice filled with awe. This is absolutely brilliant, but none of us wrote this. Who could have possibly done this? Someone takes a photo and immediately posts it online with the caption, "The impossible quantum equation solved at Nigerian University, nobody knows by who." The post goes viral within minutes, spreading across academic forums, physics communities, social media platforms. Speculation erupts everywhere. Was it a visiting scholar, some kind of artificial intelligence, an elaborate prank by students? Back on campus, the pressure is mounting to find the mystery solver who had been inside Lecture Hall 2C that morning. They pull the hallway security footage, fast-forwarding through the early morning hours until they find it. There, walking calmly into the building at dawn, is a small woman in a white cafeteria uniform, a hairnet on her head, a notebook in her arms. The quality is grainy, but the uniform is unmistakable. "Miss Okafor," someone says, and silence falls across the physics department office like a bomb had gone off. "You're kidding me," Adeyemi says, his face pale with shock. "That's the cafeteria worker," Chidi whispers in complete disbelief. "This can't be real. It's impossible." But there it is on the screen, clear as day, undeniable. The woman they passed every morning without a second thought. The one who poured their coffee and wiped their tables had just outsmarted PhD specialists from 7 countries across Africa. By the next morning, her name isn't just a whisper anymore. It's a question that buzzes through every hallway, every classroom, every chat group on campus. Who is Miss Grace? Students start slipping notes onto the cafeteria counter when she's not looking. "Are you the one who solved it? Please teach us, is it really true?" She keeps her head down, does her job exactly as she always has. But now the stares follow her everywhere. Respectful, curious, more than a little guilty. Professor Adeyemi can't let it go. Something about this doesn't add up. He digs through old academic archives, searching for any record of Grace Okafor in physics programs, and then he finds it. Buried in Covenant University, Lagos records from years ago. Grace Okafor, Advanced Theoretical Physics Program, one of the most promising students the university had seen in a generation published research at 22. Invited to conferences, professors predicting she'd revolutionize quantum mechanics. Then suddenly nothing. After age 23, she vanished from the academic world like she'd never existed. Down in the cafeteria, a group of students gather around a phone showing an old Covenant University newsletter. "That's her," one of them says, pointing to a younger Grace receiving an award. "She was a certified genius and then she just disappeared." "Or maybe she was forced to disappear," another student says quietly. "But why would someone with that kind of mind end up here?" The university administration has to know the truth. Dr. Chidi requests a private meeting with Grace. She refuses immediately. Then Adeyemi tries. She refuses again. On the third attempt, Ngozi asks and Grace finally agrees. But under strict conditions, no cameras, no press, no questions about the equation itself. Just listen to what she has to say. They agree to everything. The meeting is set for that afternoon in a small physics department office. The office is quiet, smells faintly of old coffee and fresh paint. Afternoon light filters through blinds. Grace sits across from Professors Adeyemi, Ngozi and Chidi. Her weathered spiral notebook rests on the table between them like evidence of another life. She doesn't flinch under their stares, doesn't fidget nervously. She just looks at them with calm eyes that have seen too much. "You want to know who I am?" she says, her voice even and controlled. "So I'll tell you, but don't expect some dramatic movie tragedy. Sometimes pain doesn't scream or demand attention. Sometimes it just waits quietly, patiently, until someone finally asks." The room stays completely silent. All 3 professors lean forward. "My name is Grace Chinwe Okafor. At 23, I was studying advanced theoretical physics at Covenant University, Lagos, top of my class. Full scholarship. Professors saying I'd change physics forever. She pauses, letting the words sink in. That same year, my father received news that destroyed our entire world. A shift in the air makes the room feel smaller. My father, Samuel, was a successful businessman in Lagos, importing goods through the port complex. He invested everything, our entire family's wealth, in New Year inventory at Apapa Port. Every penny we had went into those shipping containers. Her voice stays steady, but her fingers tighten slightly on the notebook. Then came the phone call. The containers had fallen into the ocean during loading. Everything lost. No insurance, no recovery, a lifetime of work gone in seconds. The professors sit frozen, barely breathing. The shock was too much for him. While driving home in Lagos after getting the news, he crashed. The accident left both my parents permanently disabled, my mother, Elizabeth, wheelchair-bound for life. My father developed Alzheimer's from the trauma, his mind destroyed by the shock. Dr. Ngozi's hand covers her mouth. Adeyemi looks down at the table. I had a choice to make, Grace continues. Continue my physics studies at Covenant University or save my family in my world. Family wins. Always. Another long silence fills the room. We lost everything. The house in Lagos, the cars, the savings, the life we'd built. We moved to our ancestral village in Osun State. I dropped out of university to become their caregiver. For years, I watched my mother struggle with basic tasks. Watched my father forget my name, forget he had a daughter, forget everything that made him who he was. Her voice cracks just slightly, the first sign of emotion breaking through. When they finally passed, I tried to go back to academics, but the world had moved on. My spot at Covenant University was gone. My research was outdated. No one remembered the promising student from years ago. I needed work, any work to survive. So I came here to this cafeteria where I could at least be near the physics I loved, even if I could never be part of it again. She looks at them directly now, strong and clear despite everything. I didn't leave physics. Physics never left me. I just had to walk away for something more important than formulas and fame. I walked away for love. Professor Adeyemi swallows hard, his throat tight. Dr. Ngozi is visibly shaken, tears threatening to fall. Even Chidi, usually so composed, has no words. In that quiet little office, the academic elite finally see Grace not as a cafeteria worker or a mystery to be solved, but as a woman who had given everything for her family, who had sacrificed a brilliant career for love, who had chosen humanity over academic glory. The next morning, Grace steps into the cafeteria at 7:03 a.m. like always. But something is fundamentally different. The room falls completely silent as she enters. Students stand up from their seats, staff stop what they're doing, professors rise from their tables, and then comes applause. Starting slow and uncertain, then growing stronger, more confident. Not polite or obligatory, but real. Genuine. Heartfelt Grace stops in her tracks, frozen by the unexpected recognition. All those eyes that had looked through her for years are now filled with awe, with regret, with genuine admiration and respect. A young woman named Blessing, with natural hair and determined eyes, walks up and says softly but clearly, "Miss Grace, you don't have to serve anyone today. We're here to serve you. Thank you for showing us what real brilliance looks like." Grace smiles then, a small, tearful smile that transforms her entire face. Later that afternoon, the university president gives a public announcement that will change everything. A new scholarship will be created immediately, the Grace Okafor Fellowship for Hidden Excellence, specifically designed to support brilliant students facing family crisis. Even more shocking, Grace is invited to give a guest lecture to the entire university community. She declines at first, uncomfortable with the attention. On the third request, she finally says yes, but with one condition. "I won't talk about physics formulas or quantum mechanics. You've got plenty of people for that. I'll talk about what no one teaches in any classroom, how to truly see and listen to the people you've overlooked your entire life. The university's main auditorium is packed beyond capacity. Students fill every seat and stand along the walls. Faculty line the aisles. Even janitors and cafeteria workers are there, some sitting in those velvet chairs for the very first time in their lives. The lights dim slowly, and Grace walks onto the stage, moving deliberately, gracefully. No spotlight follows her. No dramatic music plays. Just a woman in a simple dark blue dress holding an old Covenant University spiral notebook to her chest like a shield. She steps up to the podium, and for a long moment she simply looks at them all, taking in the sea of faces. "Good afternoon," she begins. Her voice carries clearly through the hushed auditorium. "My name is Grace Chinwe Okafor. I've served coffee to many of you, cleaned your tables, watched you laugh with your friends and ignore my existence. Some of you walked past me thousands of times without ever seeing me." A murmur ripples through the crowd, uncomfortable but necessary. But her tone isn't bitter or accusatory. It's truthful, calm, focused on something bigger than personal hurt. For a long time, I thought my story was over, that physics and mathematics were things I had left behind in Lagos, buried with my parents in Osun State. But the truth is, knowledge never leaves you. It lives right here. She places her hand over her heart. "When you laughed at me yesterday, when you told me to stay in the kitchen where I belong, it wasn't the first time I'd heard those words. And it won't be the last time someone underestimates a woman, especially a black woman, based on their uniform or their circumstances." That line strikes like lightning through the room. But again, no anger in her voice, just clarity that cuts deeper than rage ever could. What you don't seem to understand is that brilliance doesn't wear a uniform or come with a title. It doesn't announce itself with degrees on the wall. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the one person in the room you never thought to ask, never bothered to see, never imagined could contribute. She opens the notebook slowly and turns to the last page where she'd solved the equation. "These 5 lines you saw on that board, they're not really about quantum physics or theoretical mathematics. They're about respect. They're about what happens when someone who's been silenced for years finally decides to speak. They're proof that genius can survive anywhere, even in kitchens, even in villages, even in the places you think are beneath your notice." Then she closes the notebook gently, like closing a chapter of her life. "I'm not here to be anyone's symbol or token. I'm not your inspiration story to make you feel better about yourselves. I'm here to remind you that knowledge without humility is just arrogance with equations. Intelligence without compassion is just clever cruelty." A long pause fills the auditorium, heavy with truth. Then her final words. "You see me now because I solved your unsolvable problem. But how many Graces do you still walk past every single day? How many brilliant minds are washing your dishes right now? How many geniuses are driving your taxis? How many potential Nobel Prize winners are cleaning your offices tonight?" The entire room rises to their feet simultaneously. No one tells them to stand. No one has to. The applause is thunderous, overwhelming. Some people cry openly. Others bow their heads in recognition of their own blindness. And in that moment, the university doesn't just hear Grace Okafor. They feel the weight of every brilliant person they'd ever overlooked, ever dismissed, ever made invisible. The cafeteria looks completely different the next week. The walls have been freshly painted in warm colours. New plants bring life to the corners. Framed photos of cafeteria staff stand beside academic awards, given equal prominence. And in the centre of it all, a portrait of young Grace at Covenant University, holding her Physics Achievement Award, next to a current photo of her in her cafeteria uniform. Below both images, in gold lettering, words that will remind everyone who enters: knowledge is knowing, wisdom is listening, true genius serves others. Grace Chinwe Okafor. She moves through the transformed space with quiet dignity, not rushing anywhere, not trying to blend into the background anymore. Her name tag now reads Visiting Professor, Theoretical Physics. But she still wears the white kitchen uniform by choice, not necessity. It's comfortable, she tells people who ask, and it reminds me that service and genius aren't opposites, they're partners. At the coffee station, a nervous freshman approaches her, clutching a notebook. The girl, Blessing, has been watching Grace for days, building up courage. "Miss Grace," she says, voice shaking with nervousness, "I watched your speech 3 times online. I wrote something, a physics theory, but I'm not sure if it makes sense. Everyone says I'm too young, that I should focus on basic studies first." Grace smiles warmly and takes the notebook, opening it with the same care she'd given her own work. Equations fill the pages, some crossed out, some circled. Ideas in beautiful chaos. She studies them carefully, then nods approvingly. She taps the top of the page where Blessing had written, "Page 1, first attempt." "You see this right here?" Grace says gently. "This is the most important number in your notebook. 1, the first step. The first time you dared to write down what was in your mind. The first time you believed your thoughts deserved space on paper. Everything else, all the complex theories and breakthrough discoveries, they all come after this one brave moment." Blessing exhales deeply, visibly relieved and encouraged. Grace closes the notebook carefully and hands it back. "Sometimes," she says with a knowing smile, "you have to wipe the table completely clean to see the problem from a new angle. Don't let anyone tell you you're too young, too inexperienced, too anything. If you can see it in your mind, if you can feel the rhythm of the universe's mathematics, then you belong here just as much as any professor." They both smile. Understanding passes between them, and life moves forward, quietly, beautifully, with dignity finally restored. The story of Grace Okafor spreads far beyond the university, beyond Osun State, beyond Nigeria itself. It becomes a reminder that extraordinary minds exist everywhere, in every kitchen, every village, every place society tells us not to look. It proves that sometimes the smartest person in the room is the one pouring the coffee. That genius doesn't always come with credentials, and that true brilliance often comes dressed in work clothes, not academic robes. And somewhere in Lagos at Covenant University, they add a new inscription to their physics building in memory of all the brilliant minds we failed to see. In honor of Grace Okafor, who showed us that the universe's greatest secrets are sometimes solved by those who serve in silence. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss stories like this one.